Okay,
Ooh.
there it is. All right. Okay. So let's hop in. We're talking about teaching improv. And what I think is so interesting is that you are teaching and coaching your peers on these teams, which is its own problem or own thing to think about. I want to start. Actually, you know what? Let's go around and do a little icebreakery thing. And I'll give you a second to think about it. Do you have a go-to warm-up? And or what is your favorite warm-up to do as an improviser or as somebody who is leading other improvisers? Okay, I'm gonna let you think even more. All right, great. Okay, so Ethan nodded. I'm gonna let you think. I'm gonna let you think. Nick's got some. All right, Ethan, why don't you go ahead?
Um, yeah, so my go-to warm up, we call it whoosh bong. I think there's other things to call it. I've also heard it called like pass the ball of energy. But you like stand in a circle and you just pass a ball of energy to the person next to you. But then it can get crazy. You can add extra things and like send it around and it's a good warm up to really keep energy up and like team synergy up. My personal favorite.
Cool. Nick, you want to go next?
Yeah, well, one I like is wah. I don't know if this is a universal one. Yeah, okay, I'm getting some nods.
Yeah.
It's really good to get people focused, like in rhythm with each other, get energy up. But yeah, like I'm a big fan of wah.
I don't know Wa, or maybe I do, but I don't know it by that name. Can you tell me how Wa goes?
Yeah, so you stand in a circle and like one person will go point at someone like this and say wah, and then oh, am I gonna forget it? Oh, I haven't had improv since June. The person that you point at goes wah back up, and the two people go wah to the side, and then they throw it to someone else, and it just gets everybody engaged.
I forget what we call that. I've definitely done that, but I forget what it was called. Daniel, what you got?
I would say mine, at least for our purposes here, is three-line game in which the sort of rapid fire starting scenes. And like so one person will say a line, the other person will say a line, and then the first person will say another line to continue it. And it doesn't have to be a full scene, but I think it's a very good way of getting some practice in ways that we don't always do in like large scale, I guess.
All right, Frank.
Um, I feel like I tend to like our groups tend to warm up. I like to go to like I don't know if you guys know this. It's called whoosh. And it's like um you just like throw around like energy and stuff like it's exactly like what Ethan described. So yeah, I don't know.
Great.
It was yeah.
My team, I was on a team called Pumpernickel in college, and we did a warm up that I've never encountered with any other team before, but it was called Saber Dagger. So one of your arms you would hold totally straight, and that was your saber. And then you would hold two fingers like this, and this was your dagger. And one person would be the caller. And if they called dagger, and your saber was always your saber, your dagger was always your dagger. But if they called dagger, you could move at any speed you wanted, and the goal was to kill your other teammates. And the way you would do that is by hitting them with your dagger in between their shoulder blades. And then if they called saber, everybody had to move slow motion. And if you touched their body anywhere but their saber, they died.
Mm.
And it was very fun. We did it the first practice I ever had with the team. My team was so committed. Somebody smashed me in the face, and I was bleeding in the bathroom for the first 20 minutes of practice. So maybe that's why people don't do it, but it was fun. It was
Yeah.
very fun. Okay, so I guess I'm taking a hard turn. So I am wondering when you're thinking about planning for practice or planning for a curriculum on the whole, because I guess let's delineate too. If you're teaching somebody improv, then you don't know what they know or what they don't know, but you're teaching them new skills or you're teaching them how your team improvises. And then there's coaching, which is okay, we're all on the same page and we all know what we're doing, but we're gonna all note you or we'll note each other to get even tighter, to get even better at this. So I guess just to delineate teaching and coaching, although there's a huge overlap. Um, Where's the question? Here's the question is coming. So I'm wondering, and Nick, I'd like to start with you. When you're thinking about your curriculum, when you're planning your curriculum, how do you do that? Where does that come from? How do you come up with a plan?
Yeah, so have very little experience teaching or improving. Frankly, I didn't do any of it before I got to college. But when I became president, I reached out to the two former presidents of my club that existed while I was there. And I was like, hey, can we put a Google Doc together with just all of our ideas and like a step-by-step way of the easiest way for us to teach at our club? And we worked together on that. We created it. I believe there's a link to it on my bio on the website. But it's very helpful to go in with a plan as much as it's like improv, let's just figure it out. It's so hard. But yeah, just having that plan and having a step-by-step, week-by-week checklist of things we want to take care of.
How many weeks does that cover? Or how extent? And I will check out the link in your bio, but in the
Yeah, let me
meantime.
pull it up.
Oh, I think
We work over a full semester. Okay. Um, Here we are. Yeah, so let's see. It's a 9 week tutorial, if you would. And it gives us enough time to hopefully have 9 meetings before the end of the semester. And if we have any more, just brush up on stuff and lock things in.
cool.
Yeah.
Daniel or Ethan or Frank, how about you? How do you plan for those practices?
Um, yeah, so I've just recently become the president of the club, but I was on the board last year and got a couple of chances to just sort of run workshops. And something that I think is really important is not only like being able to see like what needs to be like touched up on and like why like what needs to be improved upon, but also seeing which members are already really good at those things and being able to exemplify, like sort of amplify their talents to help you demonstrate. Because as a single person, especially as just a college student, we're not going to be the best at everything, presumably. Um, and so being able to sort of like lean on not only fellow board members but just fellow improvising members as well, I think can be a really important part of like teaching new skills.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off of that, I mean, like, I'm not, again, like, kind of like what Daniel just talked about. I'm like becoming a president of the improv club. But I was an avid member this former year, and attended a few less meetings my freshman year. But so I feel like an important part of like teaching improv is kind of like understanding what your group is, and kind of also understanding like, at least in my club, different people would be there like every day or like every meeting, you know what I mean? Like some meetings you would have like a really good group of people that was really excited to do improv. And then those are the times that you could like really get into like stuff that you actually want to talk about that like, really interests you and stuff like that. But then if it's a smaller group of people and there's more new people there, then you might want to consider like being more like new improv friendly, and kind of like being like gentle and being like, okay, like trying to make everybody comfortable with like participating in improv and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of like being aware of like your group and what you have to work with that day is a really important part of being able to teach, at every meeting and just as a club in general.
I agree with what you were saying there, Frank, about the like making people feel comfortable in the space so that they feel like they can really absorb like or really be comfortable there to do improv. Because I think one of the most important things is being comfortable to like let yourself get into trouble and get yourself into places that you're not prepared for. Um, and so I think something really important to keep in mind for all of your like uh, performers that are like newer to improv is to maybe do some games where just keep everyone like keep the vibe up in the room, keep the energy good, and make sure that everyone feels like they can say something stupid on stage and they won't feel judged for it. You know, I think that's very important.
Um, Frank just mentioned that different people will come sometimes, sometimes they're new people. I'm interested to know how each of your clubs or your teams work. So is that the case that people can kind of like come and go, or do you have auditions? How does that work for each of you? Maybe Frank, will start with you because that gave me
Um,
the idea.
yeah, sure. So, the club specifically that I was talking about is our Islander Improv Club, which it's called that because our mascot for our university is the Islanders. So, um, and that's kind of like an open to everybody club. You know, we announce it at our theater meetings because it is kind of like under the theater umbrella, I guess, because you know we're theater majors and we invite other people to join and you know come by and do stuff. And we kind of like you know it's open to anybody. Like anybody can come by and do whatever they want. Like you know like join the meetings and try to like learn improv and stuff like that. And we advertise it as such. But yeah, I mean, it's a really like casual club. People can go there to like learn about improv or already like, you know, people that already know improv can just go there to like play games and like kind of like keep practicing. You know, it's kind of like a mix and match of like, you know, people that are really new to improv and people that are experts in improv. And our school kind of, aside from that, we also have our, I guess you could call it like our elite improvisers, which is like we have a 6-person team. And it's a scholarship based like team under the school and the advisor, I guess like the teacher, professor that's in charge of that. Um, her name is Meredith Melville, and she's a professor at the school, and she also is like the person who's in charge of improv at our school. And so that's not like a student run organization, you know, it's kind of like she um you know helps us and teaches us and you know we get ready to like do performances for improv to like the public and stuff like that, which our Islander Improv Club kind of doesn't do yet. I mean, we would like to move to that point in the future, but we don't get to do that much yet right now. So that's kind of like a more like new friendly thing. And then our team, our troupe is called the Breakers. And that's kind of like our like elite improviser club, I guess, or whatever. And you have to audition for that one. So yeah.
Yeah, at CSU, it's very similar. Well, to the first one, we don't have an elite strike force just yet, but we're working on it.
With
Um,
scholarships,
yeah, no,
nonetheless.
that's
Come
awesome.
on, that's awesome.
Yeah, but we're very casual. I every post that I like staple to boards or things that I say at meetings, or just you can show up whenever you want to. You can stay for 10, 15 minutes, the whole hour. They just people are kind of unwilling at the beginning to get into improv, so I try to make it as comfortable of a situation as possible to where just do whatever you feel comfortable doing, but you know, show up if you can.
The way that ours tends to work is so we have a performance team. We have a noun performance team, which is like 10 improvisers. That's like audition based. But every other week or so, because we have 2 rehearsals a week, every other week we have a an open practice or an open rehearsal where we have anyone who wants to just try improv or be around improv, maybe can't make it to one of our shows, whereas anyone can do it in that rehearsal. So anyone's allowed up, and we just like play a bunch of games that we might play in a show, um, and that's where we get, you know, that's where we scope out members and stuff, and where we like help people get on the same page and get to the same level on like what improv is and what it has to do with theater. And we finally got like recognized as like a club in the Department of Theater and Dance. So it took a little bit to get there, but now that it is, we can advertise to pretty much everyone in the theater department and like show them how important it is. So we get them all to come out, and then we do like open rehearsals where we talk about specific techniques or ways to keep a scene going and stuff like that. Um, really keeps and it also builds a community around coming to see shows and just watching and doing improv.
Yeah, and I'd say our club is not too different. We have a like org fair at the beginning of each semester, and through that we usually get like a lot of first years as well as returning people who are all interested in trying it out. And then over the next couple of weeks, it sort of diminishes until we get kind of a generally constant group that where people might come and go, but we open it to everyone, but also like the people who want to be there are there.
So a number of you mentioned doing things to make sure people feel comfortable, both like new people feeling comfortable joining and trying stuff because improvising can be a really vulnerable thing, just how goofball it gets, right? You have to be willing to take big swings like that and then trust that people will back you up. Um, and there was another part of that question, but it's gone. And where is it? Let's see if I can get it back. Okay, new people. What other things do you do? Thank you so much, Gordon. I do it for the laughing tears. What do you do to make people feel comfortable? If
Uh,
anything, additionally, yeah.
yeah, something I like to do is if I notice that somebody's new who's there, we'll play like I'll make sure we get into a game like Freeze or Bus Stop, where I can uh, set them up to be a straight man and have me or one of the other more experienced members just go out there and do some ridiculously crazy thing just to show them that everything's on the table, and then just have them react to it and get into the spirit of it in a more casual way.
Yeah, I feel like kind of almost in a different approach. I kind of like to think like encouraging somebody to like go up and do their like just do something like anything. Really well, I know that like when I first started learning improv, it made me feel more comfortable, and I've noticed that it helps a lot of people like because people are like, oh, I'm really scared of like doing something like messing up or like looking stupid or whatever. And then you if you encourage somebody to go and then they go and they just do something like whatever comes to mind, even if it's like I mean whatever. um when they like sit back down and they realize nobody laughed at them, like nobody was like making fun of them or like like it wasn't, they didn't die, it wasn't as scary as they thought it was, then they end up like being a lot more comfortable with being able to do improv and jumping into whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I feel that warm-ups and I guess closing games especially, I at our club at least, I don't know if this is common practice. End of every single meeting, we circle up everyone who's present, even if you were just an audience member for the whole time. And then we do like Sex with Me or any of those kind of like just quick witty games that really like incredibly low commitment and usually pretty high payoff. And I think that that's a really good way of getting people into sort of the spirit of things.
Cool. Before we move on to Ethan, if you have anything to add, Ethan, Daniel, did you say the name of the game was Sex with Me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't think I know that one. How does that go?
So you're given an improv suggestions such as bananas are our default joke of sex with me is like a banana, it's appealing. And so
Mm.
it's
Great.
so you'd say sex with me is like blank and then give a punchline for it.
Love it. Hey, I did not know that one. Thank you very much. I feel like this is one of the great things about getting improvisers from all over together is just sharing warm-ups because I feel like I get kind of stuck in a rut. I'll have like 8 different warm-ups that I can remember and everything else is out of
Yeah.
my brain. So very cool. Ethan, do you have anything to add about making people comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I just want to say, Sex with Me or any pun game is like perfect to end the meeting because it makes people feel comfortable. It ends everything on like a real high note, and you keep the vibes going. Um, what I would say, Frank, you were talking about how it after putting things into perspective, uh, for like newer performers, making them see like, well, the world didn't end just because no one laughed. Um, there's something my mentor always told me. She told me that it's just theater and no babies are gonna die. And I fully agree with that. I think that's great. It's like if you take a step back and you realize we're kids doing improv, and we should all feel comfortable being goofballs because we don't get another chance to do that socially, as far as I know. Um, and another thing is like I tell a lot of I'm gonna say my students. They're not my students. I tell a lot of my peers or whoever I end up coaching that like um never to go into a scene with the purpose of making people laugh. Because when you do that, you end up derailing the scene at the expense of maybe you get one really good laugh in there, but you also mess it up for your scene partners. And I think a really good way to not do that is to go in and start as the straight man, which I think Nick, you were talking about, letting them be the straight man, letting them be organic, or act organically in these inorganic circumstances. If that makes sense.
That leads me to a new question. I love that where, okay, default, if I could only tell you one thing about improv, it sounds like for you, Ethan, is just start real, start grounded, just start a scene. Don't try to be funny. Don't try to be funny. Um, how about Daniel, Nick, and Frank? For you, is there any like what's besides yes and what's like the one that first improv note or your default like if I can only tell you one thing new improviser when you're approaching a scene think about this or don't think about this. I can sing again if we need to think because that one was that's a real stumper.
Don't try to be funny is definitely a top one.
Yeah.
Um,
Or a note, I'll give you another choice, a note that you find that you keep returning to, either you keep hearing in your group, you keep giving, or that you keep telling yourself, you have to keep reminding yourself.
Yeah, I
Um,
think. Oh,
no, you go.
Oh, okay. I think the idea of like giving gifts in an improv scene, gifts, um, I think that's a very important one where it's like don't be afraid to introduce a refrigerator or something like just to build the space of the scene and like free that like fear of like, okay, we are in a black box theater. I can only operate with what is in a black box theater. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like one of the most important notes that I was given that I think is a really good piece of advice, and I was given this when I was going to audition for the Breakers. I was like really nervous. I was like, how do I do this? And my friend Luke, who was already on the Breakers, he's like, well, listen, the biggest thing, well, obviously aside from like don't try to be funny, is it kind of goes with that. It's like don't like cook stuff in your head before the scene. Like if you're in line and you're about to go or something, don't start cooking up scenes and stuff and scenarios. Just, go in there and accept it. Yeah, and I relate that a lot to like acting as well. Like, don't try to like force things on to like your scene partner or something like that. Just like whatever happens in the moment, like happens. And that's it. And just go with it.
Those are all great. Um, you have a couple of you have referenced like a mentor or a teacher or somebody who used to be the president or an elder statesperson in your club. In addition to people who've come before you or who are there with you right now, what other resources do you use, if anything, to learn more about improv? And if it's nothing, great, by the way. There need not be anything.
I'm very inspired by my peers. A lot of the other people on my team are like some of the best storytellers I know, and they really contribute greatly to like me as an improviser, and I hope I give that to them as well. And it's just a really good like give and take of gift giving and accepting each other's choices, and we work really well off of each other. I think that's really what helps me. The other big thing is like my mentors. I have two wonderful mentors that have like coached me through acting for like 5 years now, and they're both big in improv and comedy and stuff. I also try to read books related to this. I was reading this one book called Improv in the Actor's Imagination, which is like really useful for any actors trying to learn how to do unscripted work, as he calls it in that. Just makes it really really helpful and to learn more about the craft.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube all the time. Like I try to teach myself as much as I can through the internet, and YouTube is just so helpful. A lot of good videos out there of just people talking about improv, doing improv, and also seeing improv shows. Like I live in Cleveland. I'm very lucky. There's a lot of like performance areas in Cleveland, and there's a couple improv theaters that are just very like go see shows, see what they're doing, see if you can take it. Why not? Yeah.
Is there anything that you keep going back to specifically on YouTube, Nick?
Um, okay. I'd play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, which is a very improv heavy game.
Very much
Um,
so.
yeah. There's a lot of like you'd be surprised how many of like the people that are playing Dungeons and Dragons on the internet were originally like improv performers, and the more you look into those like people like Brennan Lee Mulligan, Matthew Mercer, you like look into what they've been doing, and if you really listen, like and find where they're talking, they're often talking about improv, so it's very cool.
Jumping off of that, a lot of the content on the service Dropout, it has a lot of really good
Yeah, they're
improv.
great.
A lot of those folks were UCB improvisers. A lot of those people were at the theater where I am in New York. Yeah. Any other resources?
I
No.
also listened to this great podcast from some Chicago improvisers called Hey Riddle Riddle, and they were from Improv Olympic. Um, and that's just something that I just keep in my ears, all the time when I have when I can, because they're really talented improvisers that just make scenes off of nothing, and it's really useful to my senses. It's keeping me on my toes.
Awesome.
Hey,
How,
hey, Molly, we do have a question from
yeah,
the audience if you'd care to pass it around.
I care.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic.
I care to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
wonderful. So the question is, how do you make sure people show up to practice and the accountability techniques?
Uh,
Well,
oh, you go for it, Nick.
okay. I one, as I said, it is a free-flowing practice, and I encourage people to show up when they want to. But for the people that I really want to, I go to school with them, and I see them all the time, and I remind them constantly that their presence is requested. But yeah.
Our uh our like open rehearsals aren't like necessarily required for you to be a part of the club, but it is like we get a good turnout because we make it wanted, if that makes sense. Like um if you come and see the show, then we say like, hey, we have open rehearsals on every other Tuesday, and that really does get a lot of people out there because it shows you who's interested and who's not. Because if you're interested in just watching, you'll go to just the shows. If you're interested in doing and watching, you'll go to both. And it's really useful at getting people to come to the shows and getting people interested in doing improv, and also, vice versa.
Yeah, I think kind of by that same standard, you know, the Breakers, we have our shows that we like, people come to see, right? And I think among our theater department, I think a lot of people either money based or based around the fact that they want to be a part of the improv troupe because they like improv. They're like, well, what is the best way for me to be able to practice so that I can end up on like on that team? And then they end up, they're like, oh, well, I can go to Islander Improv, which holds, bi-weekly meetings, and we can come by and practice, like try to hone my improv skills and like not leave them on the shelf to get dusty by the time that Breakers auditions come out. Like I actually know what I'm doing a little bit. That I feel like that is a good encouragement for people to try to come to our improv meetings.
Yeah, I'm
One.
sort of
No, no, you go.
I'm sort of the mentality of build it and they will come. I like if you're not feeling it, I don't know, like if you're not feeling very sociable one day, or just not really feeling up to it, I don't know if coming to improv would necessarily, like, I'm sure watching it definitely would, but maybe the pressures of being there might not be the best thing. So I will lightly suggest people when I see them on the street, but I think generally the people who want to be there will be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stray from like the base question, but like it said, I think it's helpful when it comes to getting new people into your doors. If you know of like when the entry level college courses in, like your intro to acting or like just 101 classes, just stand outside those doors and wait for them to come out because they're gonna be a part of the program for the next couple of years, and just tell them what it's about.
That's awesome. I'm going to do that this semester.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Ooh, that leads me to ask. So I know a number of you are involved in theater and film. Daniel, you're a philosophy major. Are most of the people that you're improvising with, are they involved in theater or performing in some way, or does it feel like a diverse group of people? I couldn't come up with a word.
I mostly get a
Students,
good
people who
chunk.
study things.
We get a good chunk of theater students. I'd say it's at least like 50%. And then the other 50% is like a good mixed bag of a pretty diverse thing, a group of students, except for, I would say, we don't get a whole lot of business majors, and I don't know how to up those numbers.
Do you need to?
Not necessarily, but it couldn't hurt. By
Couldn't hurt.
demographic.
At Elon, we actually have kind of a separate group that is like rehearse or audition based, and is typically like more associated with the theater program. But we do have a number of theater students in our club, and I think that the sort of diversity of experiences and knowledge bases, I think that really helps us come up with more exciting and um stranger scenes, I guess.
Yeah, we just lost our only bio major. The rest of us are theater majors, and I do like I try to diversify it. I'm gonna be sitting at a table all of next weekend, like trying to get new people. We're on like our campus portal for people who are just looking up clubs, but yeah, we're mostly theater majors.
I feel like our so I'm thinking of like three things right now. So the Breakers, our troupe is almost, or I've never heard of anybody being on the Breakers that wasn't an acting major. And then our club is kind of like, anybody can come. So it's a majority theater majors because the people running it are theater majors and, stuff like that. So we kind of like talk to our friends and stuff like that. And obviously it's posted everywhere. So that means that we do get some majors from other places, some music. I've seen music majors. I've seen like majors that like aren't in the department of like like media and stuff like that, like all over the place. But the majority tends to be theater majors. But my freshman year, when I took our improv class, which is a mandatory thing for every theater major or acting directing major, Um, they that class was, I think it had like, a good like 50% maybe theater majors, but the rest were just like all over the place. I saw like a nursing major in there, a philosophy major in there, like some yeah, I think I saw like one or two business majors or something like that. Like it was just like, and people just were like, oh, this, it was a requirement for school, but this class seemed like the most fun way to get an elective course or something. And I've always been interested in improv or something like that. So that class was kind of fun because it was like everybody. Um, but yeah.
It's also just a good skill to have. Like any profession, like having at least some baseline, having done like a lesson, businesses bring in improv groups to like teach there. So it's they're good skills to have if you're trying to sell to other people.
I agree.
Hmm.
How did each of you get into improv? Did you know about it before school? Daniel, I'm calling on you first because you're smirking,
Yeah.
which means there's a
Um,
story.
I went to a very small high school, like 200 kids total. Um, and there were probably about 5 clubs total, and one of them was an improv club, and a good friend of mine was the one who was running it, and so I of course got shafted into participating. And it took me a little while to want to participate, like want to actively participate, but I think over time, and unfortunately due to COVID, like that kind of got shammed towards the end, but it definitely gave me the incentive I wanted to continue it in college.
Yeah, I was coming out of an intro to acting class, and somebody handed me a flyer and said, "This is when we're meeting."
Is that true?
It works.
Yeah, so it works.
It works.
Works.
It's cool. I started, I guess, in eighth. This is so weird because my first improv experience was like in eighth grade. Because I was in theater, and they were like, oh, we're doing like a district-wide improv Olympics thing, and you're in theater, you seem like you would like to do this. And I was like, okay. But I didn't really I wasn't exposed much to improv or anything like that. And then throughout high school, I kind of forgot about it, and I didn't really do much improv related, except for like a few things here and there. But then college happened in my school. Obviously, like improv is a pretty big thing in my school. With the club and the like troupe and everything. So like slowly, like I would like watch all the shows, and I would be like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I want to be a part of this. And then so I started going to the meetings, and that's just kind of how I like really got into improv like I am now.
For me, I've just always been into theater and acting, and also comedy. So I think it was only a matter of time until I drifted towards improv, and then I finally got the chance to do it in college. I had practiced it before in like high school theater classes, but never beyond that. And so when I finally got the chance to, I dove at it, and I stayed in. And I stayed, hung out with the team and learned more about it until I, rose to the top of the ranks.
Bless you.
All right. I
And
see
now I have
Terry's
COVID.
Terry said last chance for a question.
I've got one.
Oh,
And we are running up. We're bumping up on the end of the hour. So you let me know, Molly. I don't know if I mentioned at the top of the panel, but people love the music I was playing at the beginning. I'll put a link
what
to
were you
the.
playing at the beginning?
Yeah, we didn't hear it.
Oh, you didn't get a chance to hear it? Oh, it's beautiful. I'll when I open up the breakout room, maybe hang out for a minute or two. It's some light jazz that I found on YouTube. I'll share the link in the
Like
chat.
Wow.
corporate bossa nova kind of thing?
No, not even bossa nova. Not that far. We've gone that far. All
I
right, so
do feel like corporate bossa nova is an improv team name.
It
yeah,
will be now.
I would love to audition. Hey, so here's the question. How do you handle a teammate who pushes back against every sort of learning takeaway you present to the team? What do you do if there's someone who just, doesn't really feel like like the lessons are for them?
That's a good question.
I've had one experience with somebody, and I think it's just you've got to talk to them, like just pull them aside after what's it called, a meeting, and just be like, hey, if this isn't working for you, is there anything I can do to help like better this for you, or is there anything that you need to help you engage, because it just looks like you're not loving it out there. Just bring it up, have that conversation.
I do think the most important thing with any sort of issue ever is to communicate, especially as a leader. I think it's our job to communicate if we feel one of our people is off. I think we need to talk to them about it. First thing we should do is talk to them about it, and then ask if there's anything wrong with the way that we're teaching us information, or like coaching them, and seeing if we can find like a way forward together. But if they're overall just not engaged, or just like not willing to learn with the rest of the team, there are more things that can be done. I wasn't president at the time, but 2 years ago we had to dismiss someone from the team. I wasn't even on the team at that point, but they dismissed someone from the team because they just kind of refused to play ball. Um, and I think playing ball and accepting circumstances is kind of the most important thing in improv. That's kind of the yes and of you know being on the team. So I think it's just really important to talk to them, and then other things, disciplinary action if needed.
And I find going into it, it's usually more like, how do I say this? People aren't usually like obstructing for the sake of obstructing. There's
Yeah,
probably something where they're, scared of like some feedback or something, but just try to find the heart of it and be like, hey, what's up? Like, yeah.
yeah, it's likely they're never doing it on purpose. I mean, they're not. Maybe a self-preservation thing, or just like maybe they're just afraid to talk to someone about it. And you always need to be, willing to talk to them about it, and make them feel as comfortable as you can.
I didn't realize it when I brought this question to you, but it does feel like kind of a downer. So I'm gonna squeeze one last question in from it. I was like, what do you do if there's a
Before,
jerk?
hey, but Terry, I just want to say I'm impressed by those answers. Those are like direct, communicative. Like maybe it's
I
a
think
bummer,
they're
but
important questions.
No,
yeah.
I think they're great answers. It just does feel sad.
It's
Uh,
not a bad question.
so let me ask this last question that I think does serve you up to leave on a positive note. What
Okay.
has been the most rewarding experience for you about doing and teaching improv?
I can start. My sophomore year, I retroactively would say wasn't very good at improv, at least towards the beginning. But our president at the time really strove to sort of uh we were the year before we did like an hour and a half meetings, and then sometimes we would do something extra, but that was it. And the president really pushed for an hour of meeting and then an hour of workshop almost every meeting, and it allowed the people like me who were really interested in improv and really excited about it, but like didn't have the confidence or the baseline or the skills to just sort of develop some of that. And I think that um my not only my improv skill, but like my outlook on it and my appreciation of it had skyrocketed over the course of that year. And I from that I really hope to be able to sort of share that with our newer members and be able to continue that for some of the other people who are there. So that's my motivation.
Uh, I think for me, I've been doing a lot of work over this last year since I became president to try to like supplement my own teaching like faults and stuff. And that's got to the point where now I'm in conversations with one of the professional improv theaters in town of having them come in and do some coaching. And I'm like getting some funding from the school to help pay for that. And it's just been a very rewarding experience to see like when I became president, my thought was like, okay, who can help me with this? And it's like now I've found them and I can pay them, and a lot of good resources at universities. Apply for budgets if it's possible, and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the most rewarding thing for me is kind of like forming and getting to be a part of like a really, really accepting community. Um, as like a president of an improv club, you're kind of like forming a community. Thank you, Gordon. You're kind of like, starting up. It almost feels like every year it's like starting up a new thing again. And people, there's always like the newer people that are like pretty timid, but I feel like by the end of the year, everybody's like pretty like secure and firm, and people go out there and are super confident, and not everything that people say is gonna be really funny, but people like are always super nice and super accepting, and are like, well, hey, like you went out there and you were super confident. That's so awesome. And it's really cool like being a part of a community and getting to see like a community like that grow. I think that's so cool, and it's always been like the coolest part about like improv in general, like when I was in the classes and when I was in the clubs, like it's so cool to see people just be like super nice to each other and be like, do what you're gonna do.
I very much agree with that. For me, it's like seeing everyone grow as an improviser and seeing them start off as maybe someone who's timid or just like afraid to go up on the stage and and the semester out with being like a better storyteller and being able to breathe on stage. And I think that's really important. Every year, this is more specific, but like every year, we recently started doing this improvised murder mystery show, where we would like choose a random member of the team to like die, and someone else did it. And it was like very successful the first year, and we were nervous about it the second year. But after we put in, so many rehearsals to like figure out how the games are going to work and how to keep it light and actually improvised and make sure we didn't like plan anything out. Um, and then to see it like come to fruition with like we brought in like an improvised jazz pianist to come in and do like underscoring, and it was really cool. And to just see how big of a success it was, and have like a first timer play like our detective character, and he like knocked it out of the park. And just seeing everyone at their best on stage and seeing them able to like breathe, it's the most rewarding feeling in the world.
That feels like a great end. Get
Yeah.
ready for piano music. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
all
is
all
so
of the
much
familiar
fun.
names in the audience, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon.
That bangs.
Really?
God.
Hello?
Sorry, guys. I should have